Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Manic Matter podcast. This is Mitchie. So, I'm going to start off today's episode by giving a massive thank you to Sean Morrissey from the Dark Side of Soul podcast. He was the one to recommend this case to me, so he deserves all the credit for this. He actually got a lot of the information that I have here today, so he is definitely the producer for this episode. We're going to just dive right in and talk about it. This is the case of the missing O'Brien boys. So 27 years ago, on November 9th, 1996, in Torbay, Newfoundland, Canada, around 8:30 in the evening, Deanna Boland received a horrific phone call from her ex-husband, Gary O'Brien. And in this call, Gary told Deanna that he had rigged his house with explosives and that the boys would not be going back to her. He also said that if anybody had tried to enter his home, that the home would explode. So naturally, this horrified her because her three sons, Adam, Trevor, and Mitchell O'Brien, were supposed to come back to her because she was the custodial parent. Gary and Deanna had been separated. We don't know why they had separated, but all we know is that things just did not work out between the two. They had agreed that he would take the boys for a brief period of time on Saturdays in the morning until the evening, and then he would return them back to her. But now things had gone terribly wrong. She asked if she could speak to them, and to this he told her later, but then, like I said, he said that she would never see them again, and then he abruptly hung up. Now, the eldest of the time was Adam. He was 14, born October 28th, 1982. Trevor was the middle child. He was 11, born May 8th, 1985, and the youngest was Mitchell, who was only 4 at the time, born November 29th, 1991. Gary, he was known to be a quiet type of man, sometimes known as resourceful. He was known to be a smoker and loved to frequent arcades and swimming areas. But most importantly, he was known to have a history of psychiatric issues and suicidal tendencies. Some people claimed that he had violent tendencies as well, but I wasn't able to really prove that because there wasn't a whole lot of sources citing Gary's private life. Now, at the time of this incident, he was 40 years old. So, during the separation from his wife, Gary, like I had said, had only been granted visitation on Saturdays. Now, when the boys went missing on November 9th, this was a Saturday, it was the regular visitation time for him. However, Deanna had said that Mitchell, the 4-year-old, he was sick on this day, and she wanted to keep him home. But Gary insisted that he still get up and go to the visitation, and he had told Deanna that all 3 of the boys needed to be ready regardless. Now that Gary was telling her that he had rigged the home with bombs and that the boys would not be coming back, Deanna had said that she had felt her heart crack. Now, at the time, her sister was with her, and had her sister not been there, Deanna doesn't know what would have happened because she had just completely fallen apart. It was her sister who had called the police at the time. Deanna was in so much shock that she could barely do anything more than just collapse to the floor sobbing, fearing what was going to happen to her children. And truth be told, when you're in that situation, you think you know what you're going to do, especially when it comes to your child, but then when you're caught in the situation, you're either going to do it or you're just going to go the complete opposite. It's a 50-50 situation. Now, Deanna also said that Gary had an effect on the boys where they would do what he said without any kind of questioning. So they could go anywhere, they could have done anything. One thing Deanna remembered was saying that she had given her sons a coin. If anything had happened with their father, she said to her sons to take that coin and use it to contact her. And it's probably because she feared something like this could have possibly happened. She probably knew Gary could be a little bit on the crazy side, but she was hoping that he wouldn't be. I mean, this is the boy's father, and I'm sure she did have some love for him, and she hoped or knew that he wouldn't do something, but there was always that little seed of doubt in the back of her mind. Now, when the police arrived at Gary O'Brien's home, they did in fact find it to be completely booby-trapped. There was two 400-pound tanks of propane that were found hooked up to the doorbell, and if anybody had rang the doorbell, the house would have ignited and just blew up. And it wouldn't have blown up the entire house. It would have blown up the surrounding homes as well. So it was absolutely horrific for everybody who had discovered this. And Gary and the boys were nowhere to be found. Deanna believed that because Gary had previously worked as an electrician, he knew how to rig explosives. Now, the police managed to defuse the bomb, and they began to search the area for the boys. They assumed that he had loaded the boys up in his car, which was a 1989 Ford Tempo, and he made his way trying to get off of the island of Newfoundland. So they weren't sure exactly where they were going, but like we said, Newfoundland is an island. There's only so many places you can go without getting off of the island. They knew if he was going to leave, he'd have to go either by a plane or by a boat of some kind, so they'd at least have some type of time to try to find him, so they set off on a race. However, we know this is a missing persons case, so they weren't found. Now, they issued out a felony arrest warrant against Gary for 3 counts of kidnapping of the boys, attempted murder because of the bomb that he had makeshift made and fashioned up, and then crimes against life and health. Now, the search would prove fruitless, and it would go cold for over a year. Nothing would show up until roughly about a year later in October of 1997. That would be when a dive team found an engine assembly to a Ford Tempo off the coast of Flat Rock, which was about 6 miles away from where the boys went missing. Now, I say an engine assembly because they were never able to confirm that this was Gary's engine assembly to the Ford Tempo. The only thing that they could say was, yeah, this looks like it's an engine assembly to a Ford Tempo. They hoped it was Gary's, so they used this as like a tipping point type of clue to search the area, but that search yielded them just absolutely nothing. Now, after the retrieval of this engine assembly, the authorities then received an anonymous tip from a woman from Thunder Bay, Ontario, claiming that she recognized the missing boys. This is an area that is literally across the country of Canada, which would be kind of strange when you think about it. You're looking at least an 8-hour distance in travel, and this is just by plane, when you're talking the 8-hour distance. Now, the woman, she listed off some details about the family, including a nickname for one of the boys that had not been publicly disclosed. She even went as far as to claim that she had watched these children for Gary. She was babysitting them. Now, when they did try to locate her, they couldn't. It was a dead end. And they tried this lead for years because they believed it to be so reliable and credible. And they actually still cite Thunder Bay to be the quote-unquote last known area of the boys' sighting. Now, they still received claimed tips of the boys' sightings within Canada and the USA, but, with a lot of missing person cases, people will call in tips thinking that they're being helpful, but sometimes it just leads to nowhere, or sometimes people are just fucking jackasses and call in fake shit to prank, and they think they're funny. Now, Deanna, she is hopeful that her sons are very much alive, and she still clings on to that idea to this very day. She admits that in the very beginning, when they disappeared, that it was rough for her, but as the years go on, it now being 27 years since the day that her boys disappeared, the National Center for the Missing and Exploited Children have released, age-progressed photos for her sons. She said that having those photos is kind of like getting to watch them grow because she hasn't had that opportunity to. And until she has, any kind of concrete evidence that they're really gone, she's never going to give up hope. And as a mother myself, you don't want to give up hope, even if there's that aching feeling in your chest that your child may be gone. You don't want to give up hope unless you have that concrete evidence. So another thing that Deanna believes is that Gary could have possibly brainwashed her sons, because she doesn't believe that her sons wouldn't contact her simply for no reason. She thinks that maybe he took them to a compound somewhere and they've been told things, or that they're not even aware that they have been kidnapped. She said that she would, like I said, she always gave her kids a coin and said not to use the money, just to store it, for the reason that they should be able to contact her. She holds on to the hope that maybe that will still happen and that they'll reach out. Now, there are quite a few theories on what has happened with the boys. One theory, potentially, it's sad, is that the engine assembly is that of Gary's car, and that Gary did drive them off the cliff at Flat Rock. I have a photo that Sean provided me. In that area, you can see where the waves are like foaming around the rocks, and it's scary as shit, and you can see just how dangerous it really is. And the North Atlantic Ocean is cruel, unforgiving. It's cold, it's dark, it's choppy, especially in the winter. So you can see how if a car went in there that it would be hard to find it. So, the vehicle, they would assume in the theory that it simply broke apart and there were no survivors. And that we wouldn't be able to find the remains because the ocean easily can take away anything and everything because of how cold and unforgiving it really is. Another theory is that he never actually took the boys to his house. Rather, he just set up everything, just kind of like a ruse, before driving off with the boys and disappearing. Whether he wanted to take his own life, take his life with the boys, or just simply run off with them so Deanna could not have them anymore. A theory that Sean brought up to me when we were talking about this, and he was helping me research this case, that I think is a really interesting one and sounds like it's very plausible, is that Gary probably could have sailed from the island. And if this is the case, then it's possible that he took it, like he left the island by a ferry. Either a long ferry that he said was from Argentina, which would have been about a 16 to 18 hour long ride with the port closer to the provincial capital, or the short ferry, which was like an 8 to 10 hour ride, but the port was kind of much further away, and the Port au Basquez, which was about which would be a 10-hour drive. Both of the ferries, from what I remember him telling me, was that they would arrive in North Sydney, Nova Scotia. And then from there, it would be a 3-day drive to Thunder Bay, which is where the woman was at that gave the tip that she had babysit the boys. It would also explain why they couldn't verify the car engine assembly belonging to Gary's car. But like I said, these are all just theories. To this day, the boys still remain missing. It's still an open investigation, and we don't know if we will ever actually find them, but I hope that one day Deanna will get a call from one of her sons, and that one of her sons will say that he and his brothers will be home, and that she will finally get the closure that she deserves after almost 30 years of waiting just to get an answer. So, that is the case of the missing O'Brien boys from Torbay, Newfoundland. I thank you guys so much for listening in to today's episode, and once again, thank you so much to Sean Morrissey from the Dark Side of Soul podcast for helping me out on this episode. He was a major awesome person. he gets major credit for helping me with this. So if you guys have any comments that you would like to say on today's episode, feel free to reach out to manicmatterpodcast@gmail.com. You can also reach out on Facebook and Instagram at Manic Matter Podcast. You can reach out on YouTube as well, same handle, Manic Matter Podcast. If you feel so inclined as well, we do have a Patreon as well. It's under patreon.com, Manic Matter Podcast. Our next episode, we are going to start covering the West Memphis 3. If all goes well, we're probably going to start looking into more of the satanic panic things that were going on during that time of the late 80s, early 90s. A lot of those seem to be rather intriguing. So if you guys have any cases that you want to have heard or you want to hear on the podcast, please feel free to let me know. Reach out however you want to. So until the next episode, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you in the next one.